protests continue for a third straight night in Charlotte, North Carolina, following the shooting death of Keith Lamont Scott at the hands of police. The mayor has imposed a midnight to 6 a.m. curfew following 2 nights of violence. The curfew will remain in effect until the end of the state of emergency or until the curfew proclamation is revoked. Now, the news comes the same day the Scott family was able to view video of that fatal shooting, and the family said the footage left them with more questions than answers, and they are once again calling for the video to be released. But the city's police chief insists the footage will not be made public. Errol Barnett is in Charlotte walking among the protesters. Errol, set the scene for us.
Vlad, at this moment, I'm just outside the Bank of America Stadium. It's where the Carolina Panthers will play on Sunday. There were questions if that game would take place because of the unrest that the city has seen for the past few days. Behind me, you're just seeing a few of the thousands of protesters who've been zigzagging all around Charlotte, downtown and uptown Charlotte, protesting the death and the reluctance to release the video in the shooting of 43-year-old Keith Scott. And what we're hearing protesters say is they've gone to the police department, they've protested past the city jail, the type of things you've seen not just in this city but all over the country. Black lives matter, all lives matter, no justice, no peace, no racist police. And that's that video that the family of Mr. Scott did get to view today, and we learned that it's not just one video, it's a combination of dash cam and body cam videos from the moment he was shot by a police officer who is now on administrative leave, and he himself, that officer, is African American. So even though there are racial undertones here, it's the overall mood in the country that's really fueling what has been unrest. Also Thursday, Vlad, we learned that the one civilian who was shot late Wednesday during protests has died after suffering critical injuries. So tonight, Thursday evening, as we approach the curfew, which was announced at around 9 p.m. and goes into effect at midnight, the fear is what have been peaceful protests tonight could turn more violent. We could see tear gas. We could see that aggressive response we saw Wednesday evening. The National Guard has been deployed. They're protecting property and infrastructure. So there's a visible sign of strength by local authorities on the streets, but protesters here still have shown up in full force.
Errol, give us a sense of where you are vis-a-vis the Omni Hotel, which is where we saw some of the worst violence last night. That would be Wednesday night. Give us a sense of where you're walking and where the folks behind you are headed to.
So the Bank of America Stadium is just to my left. Directly behind all of this is the major highway, the 277. Protesters have at times taken their demonstrations to that highway. It's just in this direction. And we are essentially blocks away from the Omni where the fatal shooting, it is now, took place Wednesday. And what we've seen as we've been walking around, Vlad, for the past few hours is that this is not a specifically organized demonstration route. Rather, it's a demonstration of hundreds, if not at least 1,000 people zigzagging past the major commercial center of the city, City Hall, the police department, the county jail, and really all of the significant structures here. It's impossible, even though the mayor said this morning or Thursday morning that the city is open for business. A number of businesses decided to allow their employees to stay home. Duke Energy is just one of them. So the city is trying to continue. It's trying to kind of keep up its economic pulse, but demonstrators want to make the point that they do not trust what the police department is saying. There is an inconsistency between how the police chief views the police shooting video and how the family views the video as well. And that kind of gulf of trust is what this community is trying to build in the days and weeks ahead. What we do know is that this curfew, which goes into effect midnight Thursday into Friday, will stay in effect as long as the state of emergency is in effect and until that is lifted. So it's still a very serious situation here, and things, as we saw last night, could pop off and escalate quite quickly, and that's what most people here are concerned about. We spoke to one city official, a councilman, who said that this is a peaceful place and they want people to demonstrate peacefully. They don't want the images of rioting and looting to kind of hijack that message and reverse what people here hope will be progress.
Errol, we now know that the National Guard is on the streets. Governor Pat McCrory has called them in to assist local law enforcement. What kind of a presence are they projecting on the streets? Are you seeing armored vehicles, or are you just seeing soldiers? Are they brandishing their weapons? What are you seeing?
Certainly. Around 6 p.m. Thursday evening, the National Guard started to make a very visible presence with the armored vehicles, with their weapons, standing calm at the side of the Omni Hotel, which is where the shooting took place Wednesday night, not really engaging with the crowds whatsoever. It's interesting because as we walk from street to street, you'll see some people confront the National Guard directly and kind of say that they represent the system and what's being protested against, while other protesters will challenge that and say, no, these people are just hardworking folks with a job like you, trying to make a living. So you see that in a very kind of democratic protest like this has been. Above me, you may hear one of the few helicopters that have been surveilling the demonstrators. That's a combination of media and police. The police have also used a number of security cameras around the city to go back and bring charges to those who have been seen on camera breaking windows, breaking doors, and damaging any of the local businesses here. And to that point, many of the businesses prepared around the Omni and downtown by removing windows and boarding up a lot of what would have been glass pane storefronts to prevent any further damage. So it's very interesting. It's a city that's trying to maintain a regular daily life, take precautions against any more violence or loss of life, and be transparent to the media in explaining why the police department isn't releasing the video. And what's interesting, a new law goes into effect October 1st, which allows the state to keep police videos private and only allows them to be viewed if family members or victims go through a process to do so. So the state is taking steps to limit access to what others feel should be something the public can view easily. And one other point that the lawyer for the Scott family made Thursday is that it is so traumatic for the family of Keith Scott to see that video. His wife apparently saw the fatal shots take place, that they aren't yet in a place to address the media publicly, and they may not want that video viewed time and time again on YouTube, on television, for what is traumatic. This man was 43 years old, married 20 years, and has 7 children. So we have to kind of still remember that family's grief is still very raw right now as the city itself tries to come to terms with what's happening.
And Errol, final question, I guess. So, as you point out, the family may not want that video to be viewed repeatedly, but they have also said that they think that the video should be ultimately released to the public. Now, I'm curious, when you talk to some of the protesters, are they saying that if that video were to be released, that would go a long way into easing the tensions, or do they intend to continue to protest until some of the demands that they've made to the city government, to the police, are met?
Well, that's the ultimate question, Vlad. It seems as though whenever the police chief was pressed on transparency Thursday, some of the media saying, look, if you release the video and it backs up what you're saying, this essentially erases the need for these demonstrations. The police chief here said, well, transparency really is in the eyes of the beholder, which is kind of an odd thing to say at a time when everyone is trying to be on the same page. The police department has said that it doesn't appear as if Keith Scott had a weapon in his hand, but they say they can't determine exactly what was in his hands. The family, after they saw the video, felt that Keith Scott was shot from behind while he was unarmed. The police have yet to provide further information as to what this weapon was that was found at the scene. So there are so many questions on both sides. The lawyers for the Scott family, though, have tried to kind of give them some breathing room and some space. I mean, just imagine a father of 7 has been killed, essentially, and the family wants answers to that amid their city seeming to turn on itself. So a very difficult situation for the family and for the city as everyone tries to find some sense of normalcy, and the police department struggles to figure out a middle ground as far as releasing the footage of the shooting.
Errol Barnett on the ground for us in North Carolina tonight. Errol, thank you very much.